Little child, dry your crying eye. How can I explain the fear you feel inside? That you were born into this evil world where man is killing man. Look at what we have done. All that we destroyed, you must build again. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter, from deep in the bowels of our underground lair, where we have a higher ratio of perceived terrorists on account of our government than the border has of actual terrorists coming through.
Say that again. Never mind.
Because of the two of us, and we're standing up to the government.
Oh, I see.
They perceive that there are more terrorists here than the actual.
You think we're on some watch list?
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Locally, I'm sure we're on a couple.
Yeah.
Judging by our
that.
ratings, I'm sure they're listening. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that it's funny. I love the fact that our popularity has grown, yet at the same time I love being under the radar.
Yes.
So it's kind of like a double-edged sword a little bit.
I think we accomplish both quite well. Nobody knows where we are or what we're doing, and
that's true. How do they know where we are? We can be anywhere.
We could be anywhere.
It's the great thing about podcasting. It's anytime, anywhere.
Yes.
You know, it's to make a crude analogy, it's kind of like after a man has a vasectomy. Anytime, anywhere. Okay? Just, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so...
No.
Okay. Jay, no idea on the song. Why is it is oddly familiar, but oddly not familiar?
Yeah, you probably know it. It's an 80s tune.
Well, then I know it.
Late 80s, early 90s.
Well, then
probably.
I have to know it.
Yeah, probably. I wonder what year it was. I'll have to find out.
It's not 1985, greatest year ever in music, is it?
No, I don't think it was that early. It is When the Children Cry by White Lion.
Oh, I thought that's Prince who sings that.
No, that's When Doves Cry.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll give myself a quarter of a point.
Really?
That's 3 out of 4.
You didn't even guess.
Yeah, but it's 3 out of 4 of the words in the song. So,
oh my word!
When the children
you couldn't
cry.
have been more wrong. Joe Biden is almost not that wrong.
Who says?
Almost.
Who sung it? Who sang it?
White Lion.
Okay, well does he look like Prince?
No.
Oh, damn.
No, not at all.
I'll still take an eighth of a point.
Yeah, I'm sure you will, but that's.
I got the Minneapolis curve.
I'm not giving it. That's.
You know, I once had a teacher tell me, I don't give grades, you earn them.
Right.
So
1988.
Late great 1988.
Yeah, it was a number 3 smash, so I'm sure that Casey Kasem had it on the top 10.
Well, he had to have a KDWB Sunday nights.
Yeah.
I wonder if do they still have a top 40?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just
they have
Billboard?
lots of different top 40s.
Oh,
there's
okay.
pop, there's rock, there's whatever. Nobody listens to any of it anymore, so it's I don't know. Nobody seems to know what's going on.
I couldn't tell you the top 40 for the last 25 years.
Let me tell you. Well, I'll just do this quick. I know we're going to talk about something else here first, but there's a guy makes a bunch of YouTube videos. He's a musician guy, Rick Beato. And he's a producer. He's produced bands that maybe you've heard of, like Shinedown and stuff like that.
Yes.
But one of the things he does is he once in a while will listen to like the top 10, and then he will, kind of talk through them as a producer and say, okay, here's why this is good, or it's utter garbage, or whatever. And just to listen to the top 10 in pop, it just makes me lose my mind, because pop music has come to a point where really it's about a beat and a bass line and then somebody mumbling incoherently like Joe Biden over the top of it. And so
hope they got more talent than him.
no, he probably could come up with a better one.
Well, here's the.
Yes.
So what's the top 10 now? In Sync?
No,
Who's
I
that?
couldn't even tell you who's in top 10. I don't know. And that's the thing with Spotify and everything now. I mean, it's changed the game as far as who's able to
yeah.
access to, who gets onto like the Billboard charts. I mean, the Billboard charts are like the big ones, that people try to get on. You want to be on the Hot 100, or you want to be on the top of the pop or the rock or the country.
But at one time, a handful of record labels had absolute rule over who was on
Absolutely.
what. And I'm not saying a lot of those people weren't talented or were great at what they did, even if, they were a packaged product to a certain extent.
Right.
But when did it change from that to finding a pretty face and putting it on the cover, and that person didn't write,
Right.
When did that change? Because there was a time where even the top stars, they all wrote their own music. They all, what happened there to sort of make it a beauty pageant?
I think it started in the 90s. I think to a little degree in the 80s, I mean, not that Madonna was great looking, but I think the way that, and so then you Justin Timberlake. And so I think it just kind of ended up spiraling out of control. I mean, you had Britney Spears, you had all these people that were really coming out of Disney shows, and so
was
they
Britney Spears on the Mickey Mouse Club or something?
So they casted all these good-looking people into their shows, right? Cute kids or whatever, and they grew up and started to do recording, and who came out of there? Like Britney Spears, Demi Lovato.
I couldn't tell you, but I know
whole
there's a whole
slew
generation
of them came out of there, and they were all super messed up by the time they came out of there. It shows you even back then what a dumpster fire Disney is, but a lot of that because you had Radio Disney, and so they gave their stars
how many
recording
how many
contracts.
stations do they own?
Way
Hundreds.
too many.
Yeah,
way too many. They've been brainwashing kids since.
That's so sad too, because I grew up on Disney movies, cartoons, and I don't associate that with the current Disney.
Yeah.
When I watch Swiss Family Robinson, I don't.
Yeah. I won't watch anything of theirs anymore, and it pains me. I love Star Wars. They bought Star Wars. I won't do it.
Really, they bought Star Wars.
Yeah,
really?
They bought the Star Wars franchise. They bought the Marvel franchise. Yeah,
they're just
painful.
a monster. They just own everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
Not to mention ABC, ESPN.
Yeah,
I mean,
I won't watch ESPN or ABC.
All of the major things.
Why would I support that kind of garbage that's coming out of there? I don't know.
But getting back to music,
yes.
I mean, it just seems like it went from a very, if you go back to music in the 60s, 70s, 80s, even early 90s,
yeah,
with the alternative movement and all that, the music meant something. Music was a way of expression. Music was a creative basin, if you will.
Yeah.
And now I feel like it's the opposite. I feel like now it's what song is the least, what's going to get me that top hit.
But it's not even really about a song anymore, though. It's more about creating things people can perform to on TikTok, so that and I'm serious. I'm dead serious about this. A lot of the top 10 are things off of TikTok. So you've got people who compose things for TikTok, and they're getting into the top 10.
Like William Hung?
No, like worse. It's bad. Bad. William Hung was a joke. Really. This is not a joke. These are people who are very serious about producing music, but it's terrible, and it's people who, you get into this whole self-affirming generation deal where it's like, oh, if you want to do it, you can do it. You don't need to have the training. You don't need to put in the work. You don't need to get the sweat equity, pay your dues. You don't have to put in the hours learning. You just go on the computer, take somebody's beat and put something over it, and you're a star all of a sudden. And it's just disgusting to me. And unfortunately, I mean, that is where pop music has gone, and it's gross. And there's songs, a good song used to be most part, and sometimes a little longer, and you'd have a guitar solo in there. I mean, look at November Rain. I mean, that's like an 8-minute song or more, and that was huge on the charts. And there were 2 guitar solos in there, and sometimes they would cut the guitar solo short in some songs and whatever, and try to keep things more.
Yeah, they'd have a concert version,
Yeah.
and they'd have,
it'd try to keep things in between 3 and 4.5 minutes or whatever for radio. Now there are songs that are 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes, less, and that's supposed to be a song. You've cut everything out of it that makes it musical, and really it's just me listening to you yap over somebody else's beat for a minute and a half, saying stupid things that are, It's a no talent.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Has that gone on in like all forms of music? I mean, forget pop music, for example.
Yeah.
Has that gone on in country? Has it gone on in rap and R&B? Has it gone on in what we used to call grunge alternative when you and I were growing up?
There's really no grunge alternative anymore. There's a newer like alternative kind of music, and it draws on the 80s a lot.
You can label it whatever you want.
Yeah.
I mean, grunge in the 90s was heavy metal in the 80s. I mean, you can,
Right.
to a degree, it was a little different, but
I mean, there were pretty distinct differences, but yeah,
I'd put it in the hard rock genre, whether you want to break it down.
Yeah, I think everything runs its course, kind of becomes a caricature of itself. I mean, look at the 80s. I mean, this has been talked about to death, where you had these hard rock bands, that were putting out all this great volume of stuff, and then you started getting the hair bands in, and it kind of, I like a lot of that personally, but
I like a lot of both personally.
Yeah, but there is an element of, okay, well, how ratted out can your hair get? Okay, how high can you sing?
How many tattoos?
How fast
can
can you shred? As a guitar player, and so it kind of becomes a caricature of itself. And I guess with grunge to a point, it's like,
but that's the thing. It goes the next step, the next to a point where it can't go any further, and then you reinvent.
Yeah. And that was the whole thing. When we went in the early 90s from hair metal to grunge, Kurt Cobain came out with something that was so revolutionary compared to, right? I mean, writing, because it seemed like it was just simple with nothing to it, but there was actually complexity to it. It's just that it looked simple in the face of what was going on in the hair metal realm with all of the overblown guitar solos and the whatever, and the huge drums so it changed things on its head. And I think they've taken things as minimalistically as they can. And I think that music is ripe for a renaissance. And I think it's going to swing back in the other direction, not to crazy proportions, but I mean, good songs that have development within the songs where it's different time signatures, melodies, harmonies, and
But why is it that it's gone the way it's gone? I mean, who's listening to this crap on TikTok? I mean,
how many million people are subscribed to TikTok?
But do they all stop and listen to them? I've never heard of this stuff. I mean,
yeah, well, are you on TikTok?
No,
I'm not either.
But I mean,
so it's like,
I guess my question is it's harder in a day too when you don't buy albums anymore. You don't. How do you measure what's a success and what isn't? I mean, there was a time where you sold records and things like that, and now it's a lot different. It's a lot different.
I mean, they still keep track of streams,
Yeah.
And SoundScan still keeps track of sales of downloads and sales of albums, and so I mean, there's ways to measure that.
But you're so right about the thinking you can just go on the internet, and that's one of the things about the internet. I see it in the podcasting world. Somebody who just thinks they can do a podcast. It's just talking. Right. do your best Joe Rogan, and you're gonna have,
Yeah.
you don't think his first 500 episodes had 100 listeners, and he grew and grew and grew. I mean, there is a such thing as it is a skill. Music is an extreme skill.
Yeah.
Songwriting to me is a gift. I don't know that you develop that. I think you're kind of born with.
Yes and no.
But you gotta be born with the creative mind and to write the melody that goes with it.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I don't know that you teach somebody that. It's kind of like
right. There's instinct.
Yeah, there's you got to feel for the music and that kind of stuff.
True, because if you go back and listen to some of the first stuff I ever wrote, like when I was in high school, it's terrible. I wouldn't ever want to go back to that. But, there is a process by learning music theory and spending time just writing songs and writing a lot of bad songs that you kind of grow into writing good songs,
But it's kind of like striking out sometimes before you get hits. I mean, you just name something where somebody is successful 100% of the time.
Yeah.
It'll never happen. Jay, I want to move on.
Okay, let's do that.
Yahoo News. You brought attention that Fox News and Russia are in cahoots.
Oh, yes, of course.
Who's the idiot who wrote this?
Stuart A. Thompson.
His name's Stuart.
Stuart, that's your first clue.
He doesn't even spell it right. I mean, if you're cooking a stew, how is it spelled? Okay, It's not spelled Stuart. Come on, what does the A stand for? A-hole? I mean... basically, Fox News is popular in Russia, and that means Fox News is supportive of Russia.
Uh-huh.
By the way, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Do you really think... I am such a skeptic of the whole... And again, I'll concede this is possible. But the idea Russia has 6,000 nuclear weapons, do you believe that?
I don't know. Who knows what they got rid of after the Cold War?
Well, here's the thing.
I'm sure that they have held on to more than they said they did, or more than they were supposed to. But 6,000, I don't know. They're not a rich country.
Well, if our government says something, the opposite is usually true. And the idea that, again, because fear of the tourists, fear of our southern border is wide open, fear of COVID, fear of this or that. Okay, and the whole idea that they have 6,000 nuclear weapons. This is the same country that invaded Afghanistan just like we did and went nowhere.
Right.
Okay. I mean, I don't know what it is, but I just don't buy. That they have that. I mean, am I colluding with Tucker Carlson on Fox News for questioning the?
No, I don't think so. Russian propaganda and disinformation. There's also a lot of propaganda and disinformation, from America, but all of the Great Reset countries. Keep in mind, Ukraine is kind of caught in the middle, and I don't know to what degree Zelensky is in on this or not. I don't have the information, not going to say.
Possible to tell.
Yeah, impossible to tell. But what you have is the Great Reset countries against Russia, and they are jockeying for position in the world right now.
And China.
Russia,
China.
You have a whole faction forming of Russia, China, Iran. I would consider Afghanistan's in on that.
North
Korea. There are a bunch of countries in Africa that are
there are a whole bunch of countries too, like Saudi Arabia, that I don't trust.
Right. They're trying to decide what side they want to be on.
I don't trust Canada.
India's trying to decide what side they want. I don't trust Canada either, but they're fully in the Great Reset.
Yes.
camp.
And India, one of the most populous countries, they have more people than we do. I mean, I don't think there's a grasp of how big of a country India is.
Oh, not at all. I mean, they're second to China, but not by a ton. And you take a look at India. They loved Trump. They do not like President Biden.
When Trump went there, remember that stadium that went nuts?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I was unbelievable.
Yeah, Modi loved Trump, but he does not care for Biden. So
is he part of Fox News then?
He's kind of, I guess, because he's looking into siding with China. So it's tough. So you've got this happening in the world, and so you've got disinformation and propaganda coming from both sides, because they are the ones that are jockeying for position. Who's going to be number one? Who's going to be number two?
Well, and I think so many people in this country have taken it for granted that we're going to be number one, that our dollar is going to be number one.
No.
I mean,
no, America is not going to be number one anymore. America is not going to be number one anymore. Because it's going to come and muddle in with the rest of the Great Reset countries, and if we don't do something,
how about the Paris Accords?
The Paris Accords, the digital dollar, all of that. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, just getting into this stupid article here that basically blames Fox News for colluding with Russia. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm a conspiracy guy. I think that there are globalists out there who are running the world. There are people out there bent on domination that see us as a bunch of peasants and people they can move and manipulate. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're seeing I don't even want to get into it about, what's happening with food supply and money supply and so on. But the idea that when reading this garbage, that take point number one, NATO expansion.
Yes.
Okay, let me just say something right here. If Canada joined the Warsaw Pact, the United States would have done something about it.
Right.
Okay, so that's a legitimate beef. I'm not saying it's cause to invade Ukraine. But I can understand why I'm putting myself in Putin's head. Okay?
Yeah.
Can you understand, as delusional as he is, why he wouldn't want NATO being he still views Ukraine as part of the USSR.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, that's one of the independent countries that was created after the Soviet Union's fall.
Yeah.
Now they join NATO. NATO, of course, the sworn enemy of Russia. The whole reason it was created.
Right.
What function NATO serves now, I have no idea, other than taking my tax dollars. I couldn't tell you a function that they serve.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, NATO expansion is actually legitimate here. Whether that's reasonable or not, there is truth behind it.
Yeah, I mean, think about it this way. I mean, would you want someone moving in next door to you that was threatening you? No, you wouldn't.
Yeah, it'd be like a mobster moving in next door.
Right.
It's.
I mean, it's common sense.
I got to get to the criticizing Joe Biden part. I mean, literally, I know I'm skipping over something, but literally, criticizing the president of the United States is now Russian propaganda.
Yeah, that is reason number 4 of 4 in this article. They actually titled that "Criticizing President Joe Biden."
I mean, we got a president with an approval rating at the level of Ahmadinejad, and we're worried that that is somehow Russian collusion. And what's funny about it is, if you ask the American people, look at polling right now. Ukraine doesn't even register on polling.
Yeah.
It's inflation, it's gas prices, it's supply shortages, it's immigration. It's all these things that this president has not one answer for.
Mm-hmm.
He has not one idea. He isn't talking about it, isn't focused on it, isn't paying. He's too busy shaking hands with people who aren't there. Okay? So, I mean, we're criticizing him because it's legitimate.
Yeah.
Crap is happening in this country, and the president takes a nap. President's asleep at the wheel. President, I don't even know who's running the country.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Anytime that there's an issue, something in the news cycle changes, and all of a sudden the problem goes away. That has happened over and over and over.
Yeah, the mainstream media loves to do that. They love to change the subject.
They don't want to focus on these things. Are we talking about the border? Not very much. They're
Yeah,
having to a little bit lately.
But the difference is because of alternative media, because of this is where the internet and stuff has been very good, because of podcasts, because of things like that, they can't do that like they could 30 or 40 years ago. They can't just pivot and come up with a new talking point and a new focus group, say different words and move. I mean, we saw President Clinton do this where everything was poll tested. Everything was means tested. Every word was deliberate. I'm telling you, if this White House tried that, it wouldn't work.
Right.
It just would not work. So people are, and I'll tell you what, the president, if this doesn't turn around, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's shocking that most Democrats don't want him to run again. Which right away is,
Yeah.
I don't know that I've seen that in my lifetime among a president who's been president for a year and change.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know what will turn it around. Results are the only thing that's going to turn it around. And they're not coming anytime soon. I think they're going to get worse.
I think so too, because he keeps doing the wrong thing. How can you consistently do the wrong thing on accident?
Well, he can't, but he's in a quagmire there because the things that are going to make things work. I mean, take energy independence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's in a quandary there. People are not happy about prices. They may care about the environment. Most people don't see it as a crisis. It's not the biggest problem in their life. They don't care about cow farts. Okay, they want their steak dinner, and they're not interested in the extremism.
Right.
So what does the president do? He has no options there. He has to keep up the charade that we're going to be on electric cars, even though they're going to be powered by coal plants that blow out CO2.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, is a joke when you think about it. California, the state with rolling blackouts, is going to lead the way. I mean, come on. That's not even credible.
I know. Yeah, you plug in a handful of electric cars, the whole state goes down.
I think almost any grid would go down at this point. And you're going to need more coal, more nuclear energy, everything the Dems oppose.
Right.
So I don't get how they're going to get there, but yeah, read this garbage if you want to see how delusional New York and Washington are.
Oh, absolutely.
And how crazy it is. I mean, here's the thing. Our media has become whatever the narrative is from New York and Washington.
Yeah.
Which is just amazing.
Yeah.
And I'll say the same thing about the media here in Minnesota. I mean, there is no critical look at anything going on. They just spew out. I mean, the Star Tribune, the White Claw story. Did you hear who's the secretary of, or not auditor? Did you hear that story about they were caught with an open bottle and they called Ken Martin or something?
No.
I don't have time to. I don't want to explain
Julie
it.
Blah.
Up and all that. Well, the Star Tribune tries to do an article on it, and they literally omitted like 2/3 of the facts.
So were they hanging out with the
no? They left
the sheriff,
no,
the Hennepin County?
I don't think so. They left some farm fest or something, and were caught with an open bottle or something. I don't know.
What's his name from Robbinsdale on the city council?
Oh
there, that
yeah,
guy too.
Tyler something. I don't know.
We didn't even cover that story. We'll have to do that.
Yeah, I don't know.
He went on a wild police goose chase, and
he was pretty effed up. He was pretty screwed up. Speaking of screwed up,
yeah.
Let's get on to what we meant to talk about here.
Okay.
Since we've gone off the radar for an hour here.
Well,
but that happens.
Yeah.
That is a good hour. Jay, we talked a lot about education on this show. And if you go back in the eons and eons and eons and eons ago, in our archives, you'll see times where we've talked about more community solutions here.
Right.
It's one thing to sit here and bitch and complain about problems. It's another thing to propose solutions. And I'm going to say straight out, I don't have all the solutions to our education system's such a mess. It's such a monster in of its own. I don't have every solution in front of me, and neither do you.
No.
Okay. But solutions is something I often don't hear from anybody. I mean, I hear the left wanting to throw money at problems, and the right complaining about this or that, and then going to St. Paul and Washington and doing none of it. So solutions to education,
Yes.
okay, which are about a 20-prong problem in this country,
Yeah.
in this state. A lot of the problems exist everywhere. First off, okay, the basic problem of public education.
Yes.
Jay, if there's one thing I do not support, it's monopolies.
I would agree with you on that.
I don't support monopolies in any way, shape, or form. I don't support them in the private sector. I think they're bad. Competition, it hurts quality. It hurts prices.
Yeah.
Look at what's happened to like General Motors as a company.
Yeah.
They were never a monopoly.
Terrible. Yeah.
But they've been a stagnant company for 50 years.
Yeah, because they got the government money. I don't even support the guy in the top hat and the monocle. That's how much I hate monopolies.
Well, I like the game. I'll admit that. But yeah. I mean, it's just... but with that thinking, okay,
Yeah.
why aren't the same standards applied to our public education system? Our public education system is a monopoly. If a private company did what public education does, actively destroys competition, actively, is extremely active politically, takes absolute control and tries to take away the rights of parents and so on and so forth. I mean, if a private company did that, the people there would be put in jail.
Mm-hmm.
They'd be brought in court. They'd be broken up. Every law from the Sherman Act on would be thrown at that company.
Right. Oh, well, and we've seen that with companies that have succeeded and absorbed other companies, and pretty soon they become the only game in town, and they're broken up by the government. Where we don't see that is when the government has a monopoly. Yeah. It's okay there. Whether it's water, whether it's garbage, whether it is...
Or a legal monopoly like electricity.
Yeah. We see that. And the government is completely okay when they own a monopoly.
Yeah, the same people who complain about a monopoly in the private sector always seem to support them in the public sector.
Now, granted, it would be super hard to run multiple companies delivering water the way that we do it today, to deliver running water.
I mean, yes and no. Remember, government has outlawed private wells.
Right.
Some cities have gone against like private generators for electricity.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. At the same time, they have also made it impossible for somebody to opt out
right
of that as well. So, I mean,
yeah,
I get what you're saying. At the same time, there are alternatives that they have squashed.
Oh, absolutely. When I moved into my home,
exactly,
the well had to be capped. There was a well, and it had to be capped.
Yes, Northern Crystal's right on top of a large aquifer.
Yes.
That nobody can touch.
Yep.
Except for the government. So, yeah, I mean, that is true. So, but that aside, okay, so the public schools are a monopoly, and how do you fix a monopoly? You break them up.
Mm-hmm.
You institute competition. You make those necessary changes that would happen. Now, how does that happen? Now, look, I'm going to back up here before we get into vouchers too much. There was a time where we had neighborhood schools.
Yes.
Which isn't a perfect system either, because it's within the system. But there was a time where, this is before, transgenders were taught in kindergarten. I mean, there was a time where neighborhood schools, I remember when I grew up, I went to Lincoln Elementary right over here, in, I guess technically that's Brooklyn Park. 62nd there. It's now a charter school.
Yeah.
But at the time, that was an elementary school. And a few kids that went to St. Rayfields.
Yeah.
But for the most part, everybody in my neighborhood, my mom was on the PTA. The school was kind of a center for that neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
And neighborhood schools have their value.
Yes.
But neighborhood schools can't be everything to everybody. I mean, there's how do I put this? And I know I'm jumping around here, but we've gone so far off of what a school is intended to be. I mean, Jay, why are we in school? Why do kids go to school?
Supposedly to get an education.
And get tools to be a successful
Yes,
adult.
yes.
Now, if that's why you're going, why does it matter if a public employee or a private employee is teaching you?
Really doesn't.
Okay, so if that doesn't matter, as long as the kid's getting an education,
Right.
then, but it does matter.
It does, yes.
I mean, it matters a great deal. Now, here's the thing. We've seen so many changes in what is taught. I mean, you look at one of my biggest criticisms, and I can't blame school districts for this completely. But one of my big criticisms is we don't teach to the jobs that are open.
Yeah?
You know, there's jobs short. Don't give me this COVID BS. This exists. This has been existing for decades now, of things that get eliminated.
Yeah.
You know, whether that's woodworking, business courses, music courses, foreign languages, all these things that are, you know, all these things that were there when I was in school and aren't there anymore. And yet we have jobs for all those things not being fulfilled.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in a global market here. You know, a foreign language, I'm telling you, you got a leg up. I'm telling you, you do.
Yeah.
It depends on the industry you're in.
And the language.
True. I mean, obviously Spanish probably
Right.
being most important. I mean, if you know Lebanese, I'm not sure that that's
Yeah.
a huge advantage.
Icelandic, probably not a good choice.
Whatever language. I mean, North Dakotian, whatever, you know. But how many of those things are not available anymore? You know, the kids can't learn them anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge issue. You came up with one of the better quotes that I can recall.
Oh, good. Remind me, because I don't know where you're going with
High
this.
school teaches you to go to college. College teaches you to get a job.
Yeah. And I don't know if I can take credit for that or not. I don't remember.
Well, it was the first time I heard it.
Well, yeah. I might have come up with it. It's been a while since I've said that.
But that
Can't recall.
entrepreneurial spirit, you know, is definitely lacking.
Yes.
And again, I can't blame all that on the schools. I mean, the Department of Education sets testing standards. They set graduation standards. By the way, I did some checking.
Yes.
Do you know that you and I put in more hours in school than the generation of today?
Oh, without a doubt.
And our parents went to school, considering we have a global economy, history's that much longer, blah, 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 and kids are in school less.
Oh.
I mean, that's pretty
There are more
amazing.
teacher in-service days.
Yeah. MEA weekend every other weekend. I mean, there's teacher workshop. I mean, again, that's the Department of Education that sets a minimum number of school days.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really not. Let me ask you a question. Are you in favor of summer vacation? Do you think kids should have that?
Yes. I look back fondly on summer vacations, you know, and as a kid, I think that
I agree, by the way, and there's a
Yeah.
movement to get rid of it, but I
don't want my kids in school more than they have to be.
Well, I mean, if our ideas were enacted, Jay, I'd still favor summer vacation. Because I think a family time, I think kids, I encourage kids to work
Yeah.
and volunteer and play sports
Yeah.
and hunt and fish. Well, I guess you can't hunt in the summer, but I mean, you know, be outdoorsy.
Uh-huh.
And I think the summer is needed for those things. I know why summer break was created. It was so the kids could work on the farms.
Yeah.
But I just think that there's a value in that. And I think if we're doing a good enough job teaching, then summer vacation should not be such a detriment. I don't remember forgetting everything over the summer. Do you? I don't remember that.
No, maybe getting a little rusty, but not forgetting everything over the summer. No. I think that, some of your more complicated math problems and stuff, you might need to
You
practice.
forgot that derivative? You forgot the derivative?
Derivatives.
That's calculus.
Yeah, I never got that far.
I took that in college.
Yeah.
Didn't study, but still somehow did well. Story of my life.
Yeah. No, didn't need that to be in music. So I did take a physics course finally
I
in
never
college.
took physics.
It was musical acoustics.
Ah, jeez. The kinetic energy of a Jimi Hendrix solo. That was
no, just vibrations and sound waves and how they interact with things.
Well, that's interesting. That's kind of interesting. You mentioned music. I mean, one of the things with the voucher program that I think, and let's explain what vouchers are. Okay, I'm going to pretend, Jay. Pretend.
Okay.
Pretend it costs $10,000 a year to educate student X.
Okay.
It costs way more than that in this state, but let's just pretend.
Well, does it really?
No, but
No.
what they spend.
They say it does, and what they spend is wasteful. That's maybe another podcast.
That's about a year's worth. But so what? Taking that $10,000 that you're already spending on that child and giving that to the parent and letting them pick the school that the kids go to. Now, some people will say, there's pluses and minuses to that. How the kid's going to get to the schools? How they, what if the good schools fill up? What happens then? And you know what? I'm going to be blunt. I don't have the answer to that.
No.
My answer is if there's demand, somebody will supply it. I mean, that's
right.
My first instinct is that if there is demand for something, the private sector will figure it out.
Yes.
And the private sector will figure out how to accommodate that. If there's demand for tons of bottled water, which I have in my hand right now, other companies get up and make it.
Absolutely.
Gas station X will sell it. I mean, it's amazing how the capitalistic system works.
Right.
So I'm not sure that there's a perfect answer for that other than to say that I think the market will take care of it. Now, here's the thing. If you look at, I think there are certain things every kid needs to know.
Yes.
Okay. Now, whether that is math, science, English,
reading,
history, civics, economics. I think there's a lot of financial stuff kids need to learn.
Yep.
A certain amount I think they have to do. I think once they reach a certain age, though, that's where the little specialty schools need to pop up.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to have so-and-so's, and it's funny because the public schools have followed this pattern.
Yeah.
Just not by demand. I mean, we're going to create a science and engineering school. Well, the best way to do that would be to have the private sector do it.
Right.
And they recruit the best people to teach it. They create the standards. They take, what the public schools do is they try to mirror that, but it doesn't, they don't do it with the accountability that a private school would have. Private school, either kids go there and pay the money or that school goes away.
Yep.
Okay. Public schools know whether they win, lose, or draw. They're getting money this year. They're getting money next year, the money the year after that. And then you lose that accountability. The accountability is built in to the private system.
With all things, when you have assured public funding that will never go away, just breeds mediocrity. Nobody has to try hard.
General Motors.
You know, if you don't have some system of meritocracy, you will have blah. That's where everything goes. People don't try as hard. People settle for less than the best, and that's what happens.
Well, look at the public schools now. I mean, what are the consequences for not doing well?
None.
There's none whatsoever. Not a single one.
No. If you want to be a screw off, you're not going to get expelled for doing crazy things. You are.
You can graduate with
gonna fail a class.
Yeah.
You're not. Yeah.
graduate with straight D's.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, how'd you like to have a doctor operate on you who got D minuses? I mean,
I know.
it's
I wouldn't.
you can't get by with that. Yeah, there's no demand for excellence. There's no, we're not settling for less. And by the way, we're not making an argument toward quote unquote equity. Because equity is not possible.
Yeah.
Equal outcomes don't exist. That has never existed.
Right.
In any form, in any workplace, anything like that. There's no such thing as equity. But I'll tell you this much. What do you think? I mean, you've shared over the years your experience teaching, which I always
Yes.
find interesting.
And it's caught up throughout the rest of the state now. So
Yeah, I mean, your story isn't all that unique.
Yeah.
When you think about where we're at in education, but one of the things I think that has just always struck me is how, and I'm going to put this to college now. Who comes up with these college majors and programs?
oh my goodness. Yeah. It's become insane.
I mean, you can literally get a degree in gender studies.
Gender studies, women's studies, African American studies. I'm sure there's transgender studies, LGBTQ studies.
Yeah,
There's,
studying, hemorrhoid cream, studying, milking horses,
Yeah.
or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
who has put those things together? I mean, think about how supply and demand would change all of that.
Right.
I mean, I always think about would you cut a check, Jay? Would you cut a check if your kid was going to major in gender identification studies?
No.
Would you cut a check to that school?
I would not. In fact, I'm at a place where I would not cut a check to any school that teaches any of that, whether my child was going to major in that or not. I pretty much we're down to Hillsdale College.
Yeah, I was going to say there aren't many choices now.
Hillsdale College, maybe Liberty University. There might be a couple other
Some
private
online
ones,
ones maybe.
Probably not. Even into the 2-year schools, it's sinking in different ways. I know my
How about like Dunwoody or a place like that?
no, Century College. I know for a fact it's seeping into Century
Really?
College. Yeah,
They had a good reputation.
yeah, had
Yeah.
Ah,
Well, I don't know anything about it, but
yeah.
But I mean, people talk about the cost of college. Isn't part of the cost of college the fact that we have all these majors that don't lead to any career? I mean, they don't.
Yeah, I mean, there's really multiple facets to the cost of college. You have rising costs in tuition because they keep hiring all these 6-figure equity coordinators and having equity departments and things like that, and the number of
Putting
employees.
up $20 million buildings.
Yep, doing that, raises for staff and professors, and then the cost on the other side is coming out with a degree that's barely worth the paper it
Yeah,
comes
you
off on.
come in and you're working as a waiter.
Yeah,
That's what you're doing. You're
Yeah.
spending your whole life paying off. You start life $100,000 in the hole.
yes, indeed.
I mean, that's people chastise me sometimes for never finishing my degree. I'm like, well, you know what?
Better off for it.
Go see your student loans and come back to me.
Yes.
Take my salary minus the student loans, and that's your net worth. Okay, so I mean, look. Let me ask you this: do you think teachers I don't either. And I think teachers' licenses are something that really needs to be looked at, because let me just spew on this for a second. There's there's a lot of problems why young people are not going into teaching. There's a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But I think one of them is the cost of college minus the salary that you make, because your salary is fixed. Okay, it's not based on how good you are. And I think that's a big reason. But I also think that to really make money, you need a master's degree.
Yeah.
Which is what, 2 more years of school?
In most cases, yeah.
Okay. And I still go back to, why is it that somebody who's homeschooled comes out doing better on this and that than somebody who gets educated by a person with a degree in every single thing about those subjects that they teach?
Well, I think people who homeschool, they get a list of what the standards are to graduate and the standards to complete a grade level, and they teach to that rather than all of this foolishness that we have.
Or teaching to the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, and you don't have people dragging it down unless your kid's a bozo, but...
Which exists.
Yeah.
Can we just say that? Yeah. They exist.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm often told the story about how a lot of schools don't have the low class, the middle class, and the high class anymore.
Right.
Because they're not racially diverse enough, or they make a kid feel bad. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I was in school, the teachers called them the bonehead class.
Yeah.
Hey, Richter, you don't get a B on this test. You're going to the bonehead class. I can remember being told that.
But let me conversely say, I think there are very few people that do not feel bad about not being in a gifted class. Either it's something you really want or not. And I think most people who really want it are able to get in. And for those who don't, they either don't care or they have fun teasing the people in the gifted class.
Well, but also,
yes.
That's where there's a meritocracy. You earn your way into a higher level of learning. I mean, the alternative is to drag everybody to it shows people that you put in the work and all that. This is what you can achieve.
Right.
When you drag people out of that, okay, then there's no, you're punishing achievement. And, kids should, if you're really, really smart in math, you should be challenged.
Yes.
In it.
That's how we all get better, is by being challenged. And we get challenged in different ways based on our level of ability and comprehension, and
but I want to get back to this teacher having a degree.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you think then that teachers should be? Like, I'm gonna say this straight out. One of the people I learned math from the best was my dad.
Yeah.
Who was very smart. Now, my dad drove a truck, and there's nothing wrong with that because I drive a truck. He was very good at math. And he was better than half the teachers I had.
Yeah.
At that. He could have taught a math class if he wanted to.
Yeah.
Not advanced calculus, but I learned able to add things in his head and do them quickly. But I learned a lot of math from him. I remember measuring, like in Cub Scouts, we had, what's 1/2 plus 3/4? You had him and I built stuff in the garage. And, he didn't need a math degree to teach me some math.
Right.
So how do you draw the line there between who can be a teacher and who can't be?
Here's a simple way to tell. You should not be a teacher if you belong to the teachers union.
Oh, okay. So that's the
standard. The determinator right there. Has anything good ever come out of the teachers union?
Well, but let me give you an example, because you and I have talked about teaching like civics classes.
Yeah.
And doing online classes.
You and I would do a great job compared to what they learn nowadays.
I think we do a terrific job. No, I don't have a degree in civics. I know how to read. And I know American history, and I know the basics. And I feel like I could teach a class on it. I could teach a class in the Civil War, easy.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have a degree.
You have.
In it. Yeah, I have. But I mean, I don't have a degree in it.
Right.
So how do you, and this is where I come up with the alternative educations, whether that's pods, it's online, it's whatever. I mean, with technology today, there has to be ways to get around the public school establishment.
Yeah.
And I think somehow this alternative teacher license or this alternative teach, when you went to an old schoolhouse in the 1800s,
Yes.
anybody teaching there have a degree?
Not likely.
So then why do they have to have a degree today?
Because everybody has to have a degree for everything today. You want to become management in a corporation, you have to have a degree from a 4-year school. It doesn't matter if that degree is in underwater basket weaving. They just want to see.
That's got to be hard.
They just want to see if you can finish something, if you have the perseverance to complete something, and it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I do blame corporate America for a lot of it.
Oh, they're totally at fault.
There are a lot to blame for that. You know what I felt like doing?
Huh.
I probably shouldn't say this on the air. I felt like making up that I have a degree. How many people do you think check it?
They might.
I mean, but let me just yeah, if I were going to be a lawyer or something, but let me just put it to you this way. I have an associate's degree from North Hennepin Community College.
Yeah.
I have no employer who has called them to verify that I have that.
Yeah.
I've actually asked several.
Huh.
Did you call that and make sure? Did you call Cooper High School and make sure I had a diploma?
Yeah.
No. Okay.
I don't know that they can anymore, technically. Just like a lot of times when
they can't see if I graduated high school?
I think they're so afraid of lawsuits now. It's like, like when you have to provide an employment history, when they call the previous company, the company usually will just say, yes, he worked here, and they will not give a recommendation or a non-recommendation.
Really? Because I know people that I used to. Let me be very specific. If I've had references of people that I've used to work for, I know at times they've been called.
Yeah. Well, they can say good things all day long, but I don't think they can say bad things.
I think they can. I think they're limited legally though now.
Yeah.
I think they can say like if you were terminated. I think they can say a few things, like especially a reason why you don't work there anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think they can bash you, and they can not recommend you too.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think they are afraid. I mean, I do think you're right on that. But I still come back to, again, maybe I should make up that I graduated somewhere and just see if anybody checks.
Make up a school.
Well, I went to South Dakota State. What are they going to do?
Yeah.
I'm 45 years old. I mean, they're going to call and.
Well, the one time you do that, they probably will.
Yeah, probably. I'll probably get some 6-figure job, and then all of a sudden they'll realize I'm not on the alumni list.
Yeah.
I just wonder if they actually do that or not. I've always wondered that. Can you get away with claiming you have a degree and not really having one?
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe I shouldn't say that on the air. I'm not encouraging people to do that.
No, we're just conjecturing for the sake of argument, but it's because the system really is messed up from top to bottom, and there are so many things we can do. We talked about briefly, what do you do? I mean, it's pods, you have co-ops, you have homeschooling, you have private schools, you have magnet schools, you have charter schools, you have public schools. I believe that if we were some enterprising individuals were able to put a system together where churches that were maybe a little more well-to-do, funded and not controlled, but allowed for a co-op to exist in their building during the week, and you had tutors, and they used maybe homeschool curriculum or whatever, that they would do far better than the public schools. And you could make it so that if you had people within the church that were scholarshiping, you would have the poorer members of the community that wouldn't have to pay for such a thing, and really you just have to pay to bring in like a tutor that could teach to the homeschool curriculum, versus having somebody that is gone through the liberal classes and got the liberal degree, belongs to the liberal teachers union.
But that's where, what is their freedom to do that? Because let's just pretend, let's say a neighborhood of a dozen parents got together and said, we want to create
you
our
could
own.
totally do that.
You can do that without licensed teachers.
Absolutely. It's homeschool curriculum.
Yeah.
You're just homeschooling.
And that's unfortunate because they don't have the money, the tax credits, and all that kind of stuff
Right.
that they should have.
Right. So if we had vouchers, it would make it super simple to do.
Yeah.
Any parent could send their kid into any kind of a co-op like that.
You would their own.
You wouldn't have to have people in a well-to-do church scholarshiping people, because the vouchers would cover that.
And by the way, where are all of the rich people? Why are you giving money to Complete Streets? Why don't you create their own co-op rather than giving mansions? Why don't you?
Right.
Why don't you think of a little bit of money?
Mm-hmm.
How far it could go for some of these kids.
Yeah, I wouldn't give one more alumni dollar to the college you graduated from.
I know.
Not one. I will not give any money to the College of St. Scholastica because of how far off the rails it's gone. I haven't told them that. I guess I am now. So there you are. You can stop sending me things in the mail. You're not going to get any money. Not that I'm well-to-do. I'm just saying, it would be nice if those. It's not worth it to get a wing of the dormitory named after you. You just quit funding their garbage.
Yeah, I know it. But I mean, why doesn't anybody set something like this up? I mean,
Yeah.
You think of all the people, who give money and all that. Why don't they start? You could have your own college scholarship fund.
Yeah.
You could have there could be a million things that you do with that money. Instead, they give it to Complete Streets USA or something like that. I don't understand it. Because to me, the way to do this is to get around the system and shrink. The only way you're going to force change,
Yes,
is to shrink the amount of people who are in the public school system. And
yeah.
I know it's happening, but the only people who are leaving the public school system right now are the people with the means.
Right.
What about the people without the means?
Yeah, we need to create something to bring people out of the system.
Yeah, I mean, but they need the means too. I mean, it shouldn't be just something that upper middle class people or whatever can do. It should be something that everybody can do if they choose.
Yeah.
Now, you may have a good public school by you. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's possible, and that should be your choice as a parent, not the government's choice to make for you. So I don't know. What I'm really worried about though is the jobs. I mean, I'm really worried. I mean, you got people, and I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again because I think it's important. You got people who graduate high school, and they can't tell you how a loan works.
Right.
You're going to take out loans in your life. Okay, I'm just going to tell you that you're gonna.
Yeah, maybe.
But
it'll happen.
The odds that you're going to have the cash to pay for a house are pretty slim. Okay, you're going to take out loans. You don't understand how they work. I mean, people talk about predatory lending. Well, is it really predatory, or should we know the basics of what we're signing?
Yes, we should.
Yeah.
That optimally, that would be the way it works.
It's not up to the banker to educate us. It's up to us to educate ourselves.
Right.
And where to invest your 401k money or IRA money, and where, the basics of how a car works. I mean,
Right.
there's so many things that the kids grew up without. I mean, and the Cub Scouts provided some of this for me growing up.
Uh-huh.
I took woodworking. There were music classes. There was a lot of things I take that the kids don't take anymore.
Yeah, I took shop class, did woodworking, plastic working, metalworking. Even had to take a home ec class where I learned to make Tootsie Rolls and sew a gym bag.
That's right. Trying to think, me and my buddy Steve, bomb cooking tacos or something. I can't remember what we did, and I remember I sewed a big football. I remember that was the big thing. I sewed something.
I couldn't sew something now to save my life.
I couldn't either, but my mom just thought it was great that I sewed a football. So, she used to sew stuff, and so did my grandmother. So it's just kind of, but I mean, sewing is a lost art, I think.
Yeah.
Tailoring, that's a lost art.
Yeah, for a lot of people.
I mean, a lot of people can't do it. It's just, there's just so many things. If you look at jobs like carpenters and welders and electricians and mechanics, and the shortages have been there for decades now.
Yeah.
And in those fields. And it's like, and again, I also think about those companies. And it's like, you should be starting the pods.
Yeah. Why not? Why don't these industries start that?
Exactly.
And they could have a focus, and you could obviously, okay, auto mechanics isn't for me. I'm going to go towards this one that focuses on biology or, why not?
Instead of waiting for the kids to discover you, I mean, if you're a home, and you think about it too, how many building companies went out of business during the '08 crash? I mean, the bigger companies have the money and the resources to do this.
Mm-hmm. Now, granted, companies like Boston Scientific and Medtronic, I wouldn't want touching my kids either, physically or educationally, because so many of these big companies have gone woke. So, I mean, there is a danger there as well that they're going to shove the same garbage into your kids.
There may be, but again,
if parents defect.
Exactly.
Then, yeah.
I mean, it's sort of yes, you're right on that, but also those same people aren't going to want to go there. You're not going to send your kid there, Jay, if you know that that's what the garbage they're going to be putting in their heads. So
I won't.
There's a plus and a minus to that as well. Some of these woke companies aren't the best people to do it, but ultimately, if they want qualified workers, they're going to have to get some skin in the game here.
Yeah.
And a lot of these companies have supported the system that has screwed everything up. So it's like, okay, well, it's up to you to fix it.
Yeah.
You want to be in business in 20 years? I mean, their employees are in their 40s and 50s.
Right.
In 20 years, they're all gone. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think they're, they're relying on government schools to do this for them is a huge mistake.
Right.
So, but yeah, they can't go woke either. They can't do that crap. That's not acceptable. And again, maybe it's individuals at these companies that need to do it. I don't know, but I'm just kind of surprised that you don't seem to hear from those industries. You don't seem to see any action,
right,
to bring about change.
And the closest thing we have, I guess, are like some of the union trade schools
and apprentice programs. I mean, it is kind of like that, but yeah, I mean, there's truth to that. I mean, I don't know how easy or hard they are to get into, but
yeah, I don't know either. I hear that they're in pretty great need of some of that stuff, though.
But here's the other question too. I mean, how do you get? Somehow it has to happen where they get the students instead of wait for the students to come to them. You know what I mean? Like somehow you got to get interested. It's like, look, when I graduated high school, the only thing I knew about electricity was what my dad taught me.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, other than that, I didn't know anything about it. I knew the ground. I knew the
Right.
shut the damn fuse off before you mess with anything. I mean,
Right.
there's a certain amount of things that there's just a certain amount of basics, I think, that just aren't taught anymore.
Yeah.
And how are we going to get them back in? How are you going to get them back in the classroom?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how you do it. You have to have people that value that.
Yeah,
You
well,
know, and
well, let me
when you
ask you
don't-
this question.
Yes.
There's a lot of testing that goes on nowadays.
Oh, yes.
Are you a believer in testing? Do you think testing is something we need to do? We do too much, too little? I mean, you got kids who've gone through it.
Yeah,
I mean-
my youngest just took MCAs or is taking them.
Yeah, he's at the age it's his first ones, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
But I mean, do you think they're valuable? Do you think that
I think learning can really only be measured in application. You know, I think having just head knowledge isn't very helpful. It's what you do with that knowledge, how you apply it, that makes it useful. At the same time, I don't know that a test is the best way to measure that.
I don't think a test is the only way to measure that. That's
Yeah.
where I come out with. I think testing's important because you got to know what kids know,
Yeah.
not what they memorized and forgot.
Right.
At the same time, I think with the focus so much on like the core 3 subjects, that's where we've drowned out some of the other things,
Right.
and are people teaching to the test? Are they, I mean, I if they are, they're
Yeah.
not doing very well. But I mean, the point being that testing, I think, is one way. I don't think it's the end all be all, but I don't like how much time they take testing. That's
Right.
just me. Kids, especially the younger they are,
Yeah.
they kind of can't stay restricted to.
It could be broken up and it could be done differently, I think. But yeah, is it an accurate reflection? I mean, you're going to have kids with test anxiety that in application in real life would do. So I don't know. It's
I always
hard.
felt that way about SATs. I remember taking what do they call them now? It's something different now.
Is it?
ACT.
No, that was a different test. I took the ACT, did not take the SAT.
Okay, I don't remember what I took then.
There's the ACT, the PSAT, the SAT, was ASVAB. That's the one to get into the armed services. And then a whole bunch of them. But yeah, I don't know how relevant any of it is,
I don't know either. I mean, I don't. I remember the day of my SATs, though. I remember
Yeah.
I was nervous going in there. So I mean, but I didn't even understand what a good score meant. But but I mean, is there a? Let me ask the question a different way. If that's not the only way to measure things, and I don't think it is.
Right.
You've obviously got grades. You've got like you talked about. There's some street smarts that goes along, but how then do you measure a student's? What is success? I mean, I think one thing we can't do in education is define success.
Right.
What
it's
is
different
success?
for everybody.
See, that's my take. Is you can't apply one standard to everybody.
Yeah. For some people, they're happy just going to an office every day and working 40 years for a company and maybe growing through the ranks a little bit or whatever. Some people are happy being underneath the hood of a car. Some people are happy achieving great things and the sky's the limit. It really, I think success is measured in happiness. Are you happy? Do you have the tools to be able to go and do something you love so that you're happy? At the end of the day, that's success. And if I don't want to be somebody that is CEO of a company or whatever, then while if it would make me miserable to do that, then that's not success for me.
Well, and also remember there's success at work coupled with success at home.
Right.
You know.
Success in life.
Yeah. But I mean, you know,
Yes.
John Candy said it best in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. The finest line a man will walk is between success at work and success at home. I got a motto.
Yes.
Like your work, love your family.
That
Profound.
is good. That is good.
So if you can achieve that, if that's to me, that's one of the best successes you could possibly brag about.
Absolutely. And even in the Bible, it says that there's no greater joy than for someone to love their work. So it's.
I hear that.
Yes.
But you know, okay, but let's just take this and go forward. Where are we going here in education? Because obviously the public schools have come under a lot of scrutiny in the past couple of years.
As that is deservedly.
Yeah, and I think they brought it on themselves. I think it's at a high point. We've seen what's gone on in Virginia, what's going on in Florida and other places where public education really is getting reeled in. But at the same time, they're losing students, they're losing families, everything they do is being put under a microscope. What's the end game? What happens 5 years from now, 10 years from now? When kids who are in kindergarten now, what's it going to look like when they're seniors?
I don't know, because up till now, the teachers' unions have been willing to die on the hill that they're on, pushing the woke agenda, pushing, Any
chance they stop doing that?
I don't know. Unless they're made to, not unless it
Made to by
becomes so
who?
dire. Because they're not free market people, so they don't understand that. And they don't understand that, we're losing people, maybe we should change our approach. They don't get that. But at the end of the day, I mean, they kind of do as well, because it's like they want to make sure that everybody has this pushed on them, and obviously, if people are going the way of private schools, co-ops, homeschooling, things like that, they're not getting that.
Well, I'll tell you one way it changes is new school board members.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one place
and they can push back against the teachers union. Absolutely.
Well, and I mean, they can do a lot when it comes, not everything. They can do a lot when it comes to policy.
Yeah.
They don't have 100% say over curriculum, but they have more than a lot of school boards let on that they do. So, yeah, I think that's definitely a way that you're going to see some change. I mean, because I think that I've never seen a time in my lifetime where I've seen more and more people consider their alternatives when it comes to education. Now, even some that are in the public schools, they wouldn't be there if they had a choice.
Right.
So it's sort of like, I don't see it going away anytime soon, but at the same time, I don't know where it goes. I don't know what direction it goes in. I don't know how incremental change is the way that a lot of things get done.
Yeah.
But every increment's going to be fought tooth and nail.
Well, I think we're kind of in a stalemate until people decide what they want to do that's different. Because right now they're angry and they're trying to push back on school districts. Some people are leaving, but not many, not enough. It should be a mass exodus without looking back. We're not at that point.
I think people don't know what to do.
Yeah,
I think
so
people
too.
are like, okay, if I don't like the school district here, I can't homeschool because I have to work.
Yeah.
What do I do now?
Moving them to another district is really just more of the same.
I mean, it can be. It's not always more of the same. Some districts are better than others. Some schools are better than others. It's the truth.
The more urban the school, the worse it is, but you still have your problems in the rural ones.
You still do. I think, though, a smaller school and a smaller district would be easier to make change in. But
Right.
I do think that people, yeah, I think the way it happens is if there's a clear cut option for people. I just think people don't know what to do. They don't know. They can't transport their kid to school and back, or
Right.
there's always a roadblock in their way that they don't know how to get around. But I'll tell you what, some changes can be forced within if
Right.
enough people rise up and enough people get on school boards and complain at meetings and talk about them on podcasts and on TV, challenge people in power. I mean, I do think some change can be made by doing that.
Right.
Not enough, but some.
Yes.
So we'll see. I'm curious to see what happens in some of these states that are really moving on this stuff, like Florida and Virginia.
Right. Well, and like I said at the beginning of the podcast with music, it's ripe change in direction. It's almost as if it's begging for that next new thing that's going to put the old thing to bed. What that is, we don't know yet. It's going to take time to develop, and especially when you're fighting the government on something, it's have to fight that battle. And some ideas will win, and some ideas will lose, and we don't know how that looks yet.
Unfortunately, that's true.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but I just and I would call on people, to be open-minded to options. I think people hear the dreaded V word or something like that, and they have a preconceived notion of what that's like. I think that everybody needs to kind of step back and say, okay, let's be fair. Just because we've done it one way for so long,
Yeah.
doesn't mean that's the only way to do something. It's kind of like in sports, just because you've had, you've done something, you've ran the same offense year after year after year, does not mean Oklahoma went from the wishbone to the spread. Okay.
Yeah.
And they won with both. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you can change. It's still football. It's still winning. But something has to be different here because, almost everyone agrees that it's not working.
Yes.
People on the left will tell you it's not working. Now, their solutions are not right, in my opinion. People on the right won't stand up for their solutions. So it's sort of like, okay, well, you're right. We're at a stalemate. We're at a point in so many things where we can either go great reset or we can go one or the other. I don't think we're going to homogenize the two. That's just my opinion.
Too far apart.
Yeah,
you'll never get them up together.
Yeah, I don't know how you compromise. I don't know how you compromise with that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've never been so worried about kids before. I've just never been so worried about them.
Yeah. I'm very worried about the next generation and what they come out of the school districts with and what they carry with them. And hopefully most of them will have an epiphany and go, you know what?
They may have it, but they might be 40 years old when it happens. So they might have wasted half their life.
Yeah.
Epiphanies can happen when you're 14. They can happen when you're 30. They can happen when you're 60. I've had several in my life.
Absolutely. But at some point, I would assume that, these people going through school right now are going to take a step back at some point and go, you know what? That dude, he's a dude.
Saw him in the locker room.
Whatever. But it's, I think that
I would hope
at some point.
The only problem is you're taking.
Yeah.
All it does is confuse them. All it does is, what do you mean I'm not a boy?
Yeah.
What do you mean I can identify as something else? Huh?
Well, we would have called it at one point grooming and child abuse, and
it is child abuse. It's 100% child abuse.
Yeah. It's grooming. You're grooming somebody so that you can take advantage of them
It's the
later.
worst of the worst. It's
Yeah.
pedophiles almost. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I just, it grosses me out. I can't stand it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I don't know. I don't know what the end game is, but I just know that these alternative ideas, with, like you said, pods, co-ops, homeschooling, charter schools are
Yeah.
what they are. I mean, they're better than a lot of public schools, but I've found, depending on the school, that some of the same stuff still creeps in.
Yeah.
And even private schools, you'd be surprised, especially when they use similar textbooks from the same companies.
Yeah.
That it's not.
Private schools aren't always the answer.
They're not, and I think that that needs to be rethought too. That
Yeah.
they're not always. I mean, look at the Ivy League schools, and I mean, if you want to push it out to college and see what your $250,000 gets you,
Yeah.
I mean, or whatever. So yeah, I think it's. I don't know. It's nuts. It's just nuts.
That it is. Ugh. But, we got what we got. And at some point, somebody will, because this is America, I believe that we will have somebody break through at some point, unless the Great Reset wins and we are all homogenized into the system and they kill the rest of us. So
Don't say that, Jay, because I'm planning on fighting that till
yeah,
my last breath.
me too.
It's just, I don't know, it's just perverse. And I'll tell you, there's just to wrap this up. I mean, there's a few other things that have to happen too. The legislature needs to assert its control over the Department of Education.
Right.
I mean, the Department of Education's job is not to write law, and they do.
Nope. Yeah, they do all the time. Yeah.
Same thing at I think the federal government needs to get out of education.
Yeah.
I don't think they have a role to play in it. The idea I'm going to send my tax dollars to Washington and they're going to send it back with strings attached is the dumbest way to fund anything.
Yeah, I believe that they should get rid of the federal Department of Education. There's no need for it.
The Potomac River is deep enough where you can throw it in and it can stay there and nobody will find it.
Yes.
So, if not, Lake Superior is plenty. Bring it up to Lake Superior.
That's
Set it right by the Edmund Fitzgerald. It can sit down there forever. Well, Jay, we've reached that time again for the 251st time. Even though we haven't done this on every show. It's time for the moment you've been waiting for, ladies and gentlemen. Jet fly with the sign-off sermon words of wisdom from Community Solutions' own Jason Bradley. Jay, take it away.
Thank you, Andrew. I will do just that. We think about our children, and it's why we hand our children over to people that we know are doing the wrong thing by our children baffles me. Now, granted, I'm not saying that as someone who's got it all figured out, someone who's got a child in a school I don't really care for, but while trying to earn a living and run businesses and do what I do, I get it. I understand the issue, and we're all kind of stuck in this place where we're not sure how to get our kid out of the system, but yet when we have opportunities to push back, I mean, do we? Do we let the school district, the administration, the school boards, the superintendents know how we feel about the decisions they're making? Do we even know the decisions that they're making? Are we that invested? Do you know what's going on? Because if you don't know what's going on, you're not going to be able to speak to it. And again, aren't our children important? We have locker rooms where they let just anybody come in, and so we're sharing bathrooms, we're letting boys onto the girls' swim team, just stuff where we know it's wrong. We know it's wrong, and we don't say it. We see our kids starting to question their own identity, and maybe our girls starting to dress a little more like boys, and seeing our boys maybe dress a little more like girls. Now, I don't allow for that in my home. I'll tell you right now. I have conversations with my son all the time saying, are they teaching you this crap? Are they talking about this at all? Are they, I try to stay on top of it. Again, not saying I got it all figured out, but you have to at least address the issue, but for sure, it's going to sneak up on you. We cannot allow for the school district to, excuse me, we cannot allow for the school district just to do as it pleases, to teach what it pleases, without getting in their face once in a while. And that's the lesson really that we can take from Loudoun County, is that you got to get in their face, and you got to let them know that you're not happy with it. And you got to push back until you have proved your point. Now, that may end up with you being on some terrorist watch list. It may end up with the Southern Poverty Law Center putting you on a terrorist watch list, but you got to wear that as a badge of honor, because our children are important, and we can't back down, and we can't cower. There's a lot of bullies in this world, and every time they try to put out anti-bullying legislation, or they talk about all these kids are just getting bullied, and they use bullying tactics to shut up the people who know what is right and want to stand for what is right. That's the difference here. They use anti-bullying as a bullying tactic. This is what they do. This is what they excel in. This is, whether it's the House of Representatives saying you can no longer use the word he or she, or you must say birthing people. I'm sorry, I wasn't born to a birthing people. I was born to a mother and a father. That's the way it works. Look at the biology. You can't get it any other way. It's just sheer lunacy being pushed by people that really have nothing good in mind. They have the absolute worst in plan for your kids. So how do we go after this? How do we set the level straight? I mean, that really is what this episode is about, isn't it? It's not just about identifying the issues, but now that we've identified some of the issues, and we didn't even get into school funding and how it's not really all for the children, and every time they say it's for the children, you better really check and make sure that we didn't even get to those kinds of issues. But what we have to do is come up with solutions to these things. Now, that takes you, because Andrew and I, we can't do this all on our own. This takes you guys getting angry and getting upset enough to go to those school board meetings and give a piece of your mind. Now, I know some of these school boards I've heard are making it real difficult for you to talk to them. They're not having citizen input time, or you get to meet with one or two people in a back room somewhere at a different time, or they're just not having public comment at all. And those are you need to replace every single member of those school boards that are making it impossible for you to communicate with them. They are doing that because they know they are doing something wrong. They know they are doing something that you don't like. They know they're pushing an agenda that you would highly disapprove of. So those ones especially, you need to make sure that you win and that you put these people in their place. It starts out by communicating. And you find out where these people are at. You find out what they're doing. And you find out what kind of policies they're putting into place. And then it probably from there takes a little more skin in the game. You need a good school board. You know, if you want to take these things over, if you want to change them, and even then, with what the state education Department of Education is doing, there's still things that. But there are other things we need to look at. You know, these pods, these co-ops. We need to find a different way to do school than has ever been done before. And this is where, as America, and I'm proud of America's history in innovation, in invention, we need it now. We need a revolution in the educational industry to be able to change the face of how our children are educated. Because what we're doing now doesn't work. It's a glorified babysitting system that just pushes a social agenda without really teaching them anything of lasting value. So here's what we do. We got to find alternatives, and we've got to get people on school boards. A lot of you that listen to this podcast, I know, get good ideas. Let's start the discussion. What are your good ideas? How do we implement them? Who do we know, if we put our minds together, that can help pull these things together and try some things? We might try them and fail, but at least we're trying, and eventually we'll come up with the right way to fix this. But we're not going to do it by continuing to put our kids into a broken system that does them no good and is screwing them up for life. So if you've got ideas, you can comment on the blog article that goes along with this podcast. You can get a hold of us. Share this far and wide with everybody you know, so that, you know, let's start this discussion together. And then let's do it. Let's make it happen. Okay? We can do this. So who's with us? Email us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That is commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. And we will help you to the utmost of our ability. We can help you get elected to a school board. We can help you flesh out your ideas. And maybe we know some people that can help you out if you've got some ideas for an alternative way to handle education. We can do this if we put our heads together, put a little elbow grease into it. But we've done, for now, what we're able to do. And we're just asking questions. We love you, Minnesota. But now it's your turn to get to work. get too caught